Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Review Magic. I'm Sidharth Kumar, and today we are going to be reviewing Society of the Snow. Now, this is a movie that is from Spain and has been nominated for a Best Foreign Film category. So, we'll talk everything about the plot, the analysis, the acting, cinematography, direction, and in the end, my conclusion and rating for this film. So stick around. All right, so here's the plot. So this is in Air Force Flight 571 that's flying from Uruguay all the way to Chile, and the time is in 1972. So the 45 passengers, these are all young people. It's a rugby team, and the flight crashes in the heart of the Andes mountain in Argentina. And there are 45 people here, 16 people survive. It's a very brutal and hostile environment. So the movie is all about describing what went through during the course of those 72 days. How did everyone survive those conditions? A lot of them perished because it was brutal, cold, and what kept them motivated? Ultimately, what did people do to survive? They resorted to cannibalism. And in the end, how do two people get out of that wreckage and finally end up in Chile and get rescued? So this is a very interesting film that I've watched, and essentially this is the main plot of survival and staying alive. All right, so let's do a review and analysis of Society of the Snow. So the first time you hear about this title, it's a very intriguing title, Society of the Snow. What does that even mean? But when you look at the movie poster, it is clear that a crash has happened. There are people that are deserted and they are going to build a community over there. So this is what it is all going to be. But ultimately, the story, the main message that you are getting from this story is about grit, determination, and human resilience, especially in those hard, cold, brutal weather. I had heard about this incident a while ago, that there was a crash that happened in the Andes mountain, but I never really took time to, really watch a film. There is a movie that has come out probably in the 80s where Ethan Hawke was the main lead. The movie was Alive, but this is a movie in Spanish. So it's a very local produced movie, and also because it was available on Netflix, I said, all right, I want to give it a try. It was trending in top 10. So this movie, essentially, now it is scoring for the best foreign film category at the 96th Oscar nominations. It has also been nominated for the best makeup category, and we'll talk more about that. There's never a dull moment in Society of the Snow. From the very get-go, you are transported back into 1972. So, right there, they start to show these bunch of young kids in the rugby team. They're very excited. They're playing. And, team decides to charter a flight to go to Chile to play there. They're looking forward to that moment. And it starts to, sink in you. It feels more real than what is being shown in the movie. I mean, you're glued to the TV screen, especially, I was, because, I knew something bad was going to happen. But the way the story starts from playing to the point where, everyone boards the flight, the turbulence starts to happen. People are told that, hey, you need to buckle your seatbelts. There is still mischievousness happening. There is a guy who is talking about, this is a area where there's a lot of turbulence, so this is where the flight will go through. So, the seriousness starts to build in the movie very early on. I mean, all of a sudden, people are serious because they're looking outside their window and there is this white snow-covered mountain in the middle of the Andes mountain, and this is a flight that is under a lot of turbulence. So the movie pace is good. You start to now understand, like, hey, something bad is going to happen. The movie feels definitely very realistic. I mean, my heart was in my mouth when, especially within 15 minutes into the movie, you see that crash that happens. And the way it is portrayed is, the whole fuselage breaks apart. The tail gets separated far away from the fuselage, and there is a scene in the movie where everyone's chairs just goes all to the front, and you can see bones cracking. You can see people's faces crushing against the the front seat, and that looks very realistic. I mean, I haven't seen any film or documentary on a crash that shows something with that detail. So it hooks you and it gives you a deep detail into what would have happened, in those moments. Everyone talks about, there are movies that come out, crash happened, and what happens after the crash. People are seeing the blood is dripping, someone has broken their bones. But here, from the very get-go, you see the director showing you every moment in the scene is captured, leading up to, the fuselage tearing apart, people flying off from the plane, they're getting lost, their chairs just flying in the middle of the mountain. So it's a very heart-wrenching movie, and you know that there is much more to come. So when the fuselage is tearing apart, that scene was definitely mind-blowing for me. It immediately tells me the amount of research the storytellers have put into this. As I was telling a couple of minutes ago, that sometimes you see a plane is crashing, and then you all of a sudden you see people are falling apart, they're dead or crying for help. But in this moment, they're trying to show you every moment that is leading up to it, from the fuselage tearing, people's reactions, emotions. They know that it's gonna crash, and it's very, I can't use the word beautifully, but it is close to the way, it is as beautiful as it can be, of course, in a sad way that the director or the filmmakers are showing you. So it is really something heart-wrenching, and I really liked that intro scene, that it was very well detailed, and this was just the start. There was more to come. Now the plane crashes, this is just the start. I mean, you're going to start to see people dying, people are crying now, and of course the main protagonist here, he starts to see blood dripping from his body, and reality starts to sink in. There are people that get out of the fuselage, they are trying to figure out what really is going on, they're trying to find survivors, dead people, and then they go up to the captain. One of the co-pilots is dead, instantly he dies, but the other one is still alive, and he's trying to tell everyone what to do, go to Chile, and you can see the windows have crashed and it is brutally cold. Everything on his face is just freezing, and that in the moment he's going to die. But before his last breath, he talks to some kids over there, and that again is a very sad story. And that tough times are going to happen for everyone that is in that fuselage. The cold is biting cold. These are treacherous conditions. I mean, just imagine that you probably just have a sweater and maybe a hat or something, and it is minus 20, 25 to maybe 30 degrees, and it gets colder at night. I mean, there's wind blowing in. Now the way they covered the fuselage, I mean, that also is interesting. Everyone is just coming close to each other to produce that heat, and it's a very intense time for these people. I mean, for 72 days they are in that area. There's no help that has come in terms of finding and rescuing them, and one by one people are dying because they inhale too much of snow, there is water in their lungs, or they just die out of cold, they're injured. It's a movie that is not easy to make, especially in these conditions. I mean, you really have to put yourself in the shoes of the survivors, and all the research that has gone into interviewing these survivors, I thought that was immaculate. I mean, they have literally given that input. I watched the documentary as well of Society of the Snow, which is also who we were in the mountains, and you can see the family members literally crying, pouring their heart into how did they survive that. And the filmmakers, everyone, whether it is cinematographer, whether it's the director, acting, they've got those inputs and really brought 1972 alive in 2024. So that is another thing, that getting that intel, that information from these survivors, and how do you actually personify that into reality is just immaculate in Society of the Snow. The movie also shows that that sooner or later people question that how are they going to survive. They do find bits and pieces of some food, some crackers, but that is not going to be enough for all the 45 people. I mean, some of them have of course died now. So slowly in the movie, as it progresses, you can see now people thinking about eating people that are dead. And some people in the movie are devout Catholics. They are reluctant in the beginning, but you can see the transition happening, against food. Mother Nature, when you're hungry, you will devour anything. That transition is very gradually shown in the movie. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. These are two people that are mooting the idea of eating the dead people, and it slowly trickles down to everyone sitting in the fuselage, the survivors. And you can see that one after the other, everyone starts to say to the main protagonist, who's a devout Catholic, and he says that, he's not ready. There are very few people that very instantly say they're not going to eat people, but they start to change. They have no options. So those scenes where, two, three people go out in the cold and they're starting to cut human flesh and ultimately eat it, it is something that you can't see, but you also want to see, because this was the reality when this crash happened. So beautifully picturized. They're hungry. There's reluctance, as I said, but ultimately everyone gives up and they have to eat human beings for survival, because how long can you stay just in the cold without eating? A lot of survival techniques have been also shown in the movie, in the sense that they try to melt the snow to drink water. They also are looking for ways to contact the concerned authorities, whether it is radio, whether it is, going all the way, finding the fuselage. It's not easy, but they're trying everything to contact the authorities. And in the movie, they show that they have a radio, and the authorities at some point, they give up the research. They ultimately give up. So, it's very disappointing for these people. They have those mirrors that they're shining on the planes that are up in the air, and at some point you feel like, why isn't anyone looking at them? There is a feeling that someone has seen them and the plane is coming by, but that doesn't happen. So it is, one after the other. There are so many roadblocks that have happened, and you only can pray or wish that a miracle happens. There is a scene in the movie where they show that everyone is sitting inside the fuselage, and they're cracking jokes, and all of a sudden people can feel that there is a snowstorm, and almost like an avalanche comes in, and it just bombards the whole fuselage with snow. Everyone is trapped. That is another scene that is not easy to create, because when everyone is deep down the snow, you're trying to get out of it, you feel suffocated, and some people die out of it. So there is one guy who comes out of it digging out other people, and everyone comes out of it. So that is another scene which, of course, the survivors had mentioned to the filmmakers, and they've tried to portray. This is also a very intense scene. In front of you, you are seeing people die. As a matter of fact, there is a character, Roberto, in the movie, and he loses his mother and sister on the same day, right in front of him, and then he has to bury them. So that itself is very tragic, to see all these things happening. You have no way to survive, and your mom and your sister dies right in front of you. So heartbreaking, but beautifully made and shown to the audience. It definitely brought tears in my eyes. Every time someone passed away, you could see on the screen, they showed the name of that person and his age. And these were very young people. Most of them were in their early 20s. And it really fills your heart that, what happened that, led to this day today. And it is a somber moment to see so many of these kids that were in their prime end up dying. So that is one scene also that you will see that just closes your heart, and you are almost in an emotion that you wish you could save these young people, but that's how it is. There's not much to do. So very emotionally captured, all the names of people, their age, and their dying in the movie. So it is an amazing story. It will be challenging to watch. I have to mention that to you, but don't forget that movies like Society of the Snow are very inspiring. They will test human resilience. And I think that there's no other movie than Society of the Snow that will give you the courage, that bravery, that inspiration to do so much for yourself. You probably will forget your own problems when you see their problems. And I think that was the biggest takeaway from this movie after watching it. But there are other sides of the movie too, which I want to highlight, is that never in the movie do you see any person, all those young guys thinking about their family. Typically, I've seen a lot of movies where, people are thinking about their parents and, the good times they've had with them, their siblings, their relatives, and then you see a scene where this guy is having such a good time with them. That is not captured in the movie for I don't know why. The movie also doesn't show any sort of hallucination that these survivors, they might be happening. I mean, just imagine you're in a state, your pee is now becoming black, you are injured, maybe a lung is punctured, all of them are dehydrated, exhausted, they are eating human flesh. But none of them is going through some kind of a hallucination or breakdown. There are no fights that are happening in among the survivors. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't happen, but I feel like at some point, when you reach that point, that you just can't take it. But those things are missing in the movie. There are two people in the movie, Nando and Roberto, and they decide to take a trek all the way across the mountains to Chile. Very determining effort on their part, because they just thought anything and everything that they were doing, the help was not going to come. They tried to revive a radio, that didn't work. All the supplies were running out, and they knew that they had to get out of it, because one by one people were dying. So, you rather die trying rather than just sit in your fuselage and doing nothing. So Nando and Roberto take this 10-day trip across the mountain, and they ultimately get into Chile, and they're able to find rescue and help. In the valley, all of a sudden you see there is no snow, there is fresh water available. But the 10 days, it was not easy. There is a scene you see, Nando, he eating human flesh, but then he's also vomiting. Maybe the meat got stale. But what happened in these 10 days is not described in detail as much as, what is happening on the ground, in the fuselage with the people and so on. So I wish the filmmaker had also shown more of that aspect. The movie should have also made it easier in the end to show which character played which person. There was a group photo that was taken. They don't show, who really survived out of them. Surely there were some images, photographs that were used in the end, but I was looking more forward to this character played this person, and, of course, that died. Would have just made my connection much more easier. And the movie doesn't also show what happened to the dead bodies in the end. My research tells me that at the end that became a burial site. Everyone was given a humane burial, and there was a priest that was brought on board the Air Force choppers, and they were all buried in the most humane way that could be done. The families were not allowed to come, but I wish that part was also shown in this particular movie. I also think that the movie doesn't highlight the amount of research, or I should say, what was the rescue effort that was put into it. You'd never see these people, the survivors, whether it's in the documentary or in the film, actually complaining as to, why the research and effort has been put off. Surely they were trying their best, maybe for a week or so, but it doesn't talk about it. Like, what happened? I mean, when you can't even find the fuselage, I mean, they give some stats that, maybe, 80% of these flights, when it crashes, everyone dies, but there is no indication mentioned here, like why is someone should be frustrated. There has to be a lot of agony, there has to be a lot of questions, maybe a press conference. When all these survivors come back home, you can see that, they come to the hospital, they hug their families, everyone thinks it's a miracle. It's a very well-made film overall, in my analysis. But at the end, once they recover, they're all in the same room, no press conference, they don't come together and they're talking about it. So that was a kind of a missing piece for me. Maybe a press conference never happened, but nevertheless, I think these people were lost in some kind of an isolation, and I feel like the Society of Snow did bring them back into the present from the past. So my overall take on Society of Snow was definitely that this is a heart-wrenching movie. I loved the movie. This was phenomenal. This brought me so much close to, what exactly happened back in those days when the crash happened in the 1972. I mean, you're talking about 1972. Back then there were not that many resources, as many today. If a plane crashed, the black box discovery, the transmitters and all that. So yes, I mean, things for survival become very challenging, especially in those times. But as I said, this is a movie of grit, determination, bravery, courage, and resilience. And I mean, this is about pushing a human being that far, and how a human body can still take it to that level. I mean, humans are strong, we know that, and this is what the movie shows them. So I was happy. I talked about some of the things that were missing in the movie, but ultimately, I loved the movie, and overall the analysis of it on every scene that was shown with that intensity, with that research, is it's hats off to the entire team. Now let's talk about the direction. Now the movie has been directed by J.A. Bayona. And definitely, I mean, this is not a masterpiece movie for him, but it's not less either. I think he does a very good job in conveying a story that is so real. And, it's not an easy movie to make. Considering there are too many moving parts here, there's a lot of research that must have gone into making this film. And I think that sometimes when you watch crash documentaries or other movies, as I was explaining, they show the beginning, they show the end, but they don't show the moment when things are happening. And this movie, to actually enact this movie in the middle of the Andes, the movie was not shot there, but to show how real this is, from fuselage to the dialogues, the acting performance, it is not easy to do. So I was pretty impressed that how can intense thriller like this be so captivating? I mean, sometimes you just end up, seeing the facts. So this movie not only has the facts, but it also has the emotions of the people that are blended into it. And it's very beautifully pictured in a dark way, of course. So I definitely feel like the level of J.A. Bayona was up to the level to pay the highest regard and respect to the people who have passed away and the people today that are alive to it. I mean, this was a special tribute to them. I mean, this is a director that's from Spain. I think when you watch the documentary, the way he is gelling with the protagonists, the actors who were from Chile, from Argentina, you can see that how much of effort that he's putting into making of this film, and the way he is narrating the story is just immaculate. I mean, I don't feel there is any flaw in the movie. I mean, sure, there were some parts which I would have loved to see, but I felt like J.A. Bayona's way of showcasing the world, this is what happened back then. It brings you goosebumps. So if someone like him can do that, it's all hats to his vision and creativity and how he wanted the movie to be shown. It definitely feels he did not try to cut corners. He has put in every effort to make this into a super reality. Now let's talk about the cinematography here. So that is being performed by Pedro Lucuin. And definitely, I mean, the footage, as you see, it's very beautifully picturized here. You see a lot of different angles here, whether it's the close-up, whether it is high up in the mountain. It's a very eerie feeling when you see the nature, the good side of the nature. When the people come out, it's sunny, and also in the dark, also in the mother nature, capturing all the mountains with drones and everything. So I thought the cinematography also equally complemented the vision of J.A. Bayona. There are a lot of ways the camera has captured the human emotion. I mean, it's dark, it is cold, it's nighttime, then it's daylight. But Pedro has captured every scene in a very clean way. You can see at one side, it's sunny, which seems like there is hope, there is optimism. On the other side, when the avalanche comes, when people are dying, you can see the dark side of the survival. So I think cinematography capturing those emotions, close-ups. There's also one scene where the main protagonist, he's sitting on the edge of the mountain, just looking on the sky. That's also the cover page of the photo. That itself tells you that should I give up, or should I still continue my pursuit of getting out of this mess. So all hats to cinematography as well. I thought that this definitely helps the audience to also capture human feelings from all different angles. So good aspect on that end. Now let's talk about the art direction. Now I have also watched the documentary of this movie, and I can tell you that they created fuselage in several different areas. One was in the middle of the mountains. They had to transport the fuselage there. There was one which was below the surface, and it was covered by the snow. So creating that set itself is not an easy task. Like, painting the fuselage, making it look older in the 1972, it's torn apart, it's broken. Just creating that, it was just wonderful to see people back in those days, what kind of clothes they wore, the airports, the cars, the whole scenery is all part of this art direction. And I think that it definitely transformed me back into 1972, and also the crash scenes. Equally complementing the art direction is the makeup. The movie has also been nominated for an Oscar in the best makeup category. And yes, you cannot miss that part, because every day you have to see people that are losing weight. They're getting dehydrated, they're getting sunburnt. This is a job of the makeup artist to also make that look real. And only someone with that capability, at that level, who can today get nominated for an Oscar, it makes sense, because you're putting in you are doing a makeup to make it look very real. I mean, these people were becoming skinnier and skinnier. So in the movie, they also talk about bringing in nutritionists, putting on a diet plan so that they start to lose weight, they become skinny. So all of this blends together very well, complementing the art direction. I mean, the set, the people that are there, the artificial snow, it's just a beautiful way to make it look very real. So I don't think I have any negative critique about the art direction, the makeup, the hairstylist. It just looked a little bit so good to me. Maybe at one point I would say that 72 days is too long. Maybe you got to show more beard on everyone's face. I mean, there was also an old man over there in his 40s or something. But, I didn't see that. But these are also young kids. I mean, 19, 20 years old. How much beard can you get at that point? So, but other than that, I thought it was great. Well, let's talk about the special effects and VFX. Don't assume that this movie was shot in the Andes. This movie has been shot in some mountains where there is a lot of snow, and also some other visual effects have been used to create mountains in the Andes. I mean, you have to do that. You can't take a fuselage to that area. So when you watch the documentary as well, you can see the areas where they've tried to create Andes. And when you watch the real movie, you will never make out that. You have to ultimately use technology to shoot scenes. You can't take your actors in these harsh conditions. Yes, you will take them, to get them accumulated with the temperature and all that. But technology definitely plays a big role to show all the effects, all the things that happen. People flying off, or showing the mountains, or, maybe an airport and so on. So visual effects to me also was pretty good in the movie. Now let's talk about the acting and the casting of this movie. So one thing that you will notice here is that you don't see big names in the movie. I mean, this is the first time I saw a lot of these new young actors who are from Uruguay and Argentina. And the reason for bringing in these local talent is to make it look very real. I mean, this is organically looking like people from those countries actually in that moment. I don't think the movie would have done justice to the survivors and the dead people if you'd had a hot shot from Hollywood coming into this movie. I mean, it has to feel very real, like a guy next door who is now acting in this movie. So the two main protagonists in this movie, Enzo Vogrinci, who plays Numa Ducati, this is also a guy who is narrating the story from the very beginning till the end. It's sad to see that he dies because of a minor cut that becomes an infection. I thought he would be surviving till the end, but that's a big bummer in the movie. The other one is Mattia Recall. He plays Roberto Canassa. When you watch the documentary, you will see a gray-haired gentleman who is very talkative, and he's pretty much talking everything that happened there. He's the main guy among the survivors. He talks a lot. So these two people, I mean, the list goes on and on. I couldn't have the names of everyone, but Enzo and Mattia, this is the first time I was watching their movie, and I just have to say that the acting was brilliant. And not only just theirs, it was for all the other people that also were part of this journey. I mean, it was over the top, this shooting and acting in these different locations, getting accumulated to the cold, to wear the hat of a survivor and understand what would have happened. It's not easy. It was challenging. And some of the backgrounds for these people, I mean, none of these people have actually worked in a commercial film before. My research says that these people are theater actors. They have worked in some small production houses, but nothing to that commercial level. So to get that opportunity, in fact, when you watch the documentary, you see that all of these actors, they're getting a call and they're told you've been casted. They look so happy. I mean, these are small actors. I literally felt, personally, I was so happy that, they are getting the opportunity to portray. And they are all the people that look very similar to the survivors. I mean, that, of course, has to be kept in mind. And Enzo, of course, looks a lot like Numa Ducati. Mattia looks a lot like Roberto Canessa. So I thought that portrayal, the acting was very authentic. A lot of people lost weight in the weight loss classes. They were exercising and all that. And you can see the death is staring in their face. I mean, there are times when they're very calm. Most of the time, these people have been calm. And I don't know, maybe it's the nature of South Americans or what it is. But I did not see these people overacting or something. I mean, they were very natural actors, whether their role was less, intermediate, or, advanced. It has been done in a very amazing way. And I hope that some of these actors will be nominated for their acting performances in the countries where they originally come from. So acting wise, casting, great choice. This felt like, as I said, people from next door, people you may know very well, or even if you don't, you can connect with them. I think that is the feeling that I got when I saw all these people acting. There was also a lady, a girl in the movie. So overall, this was really good performance in my opinion. When you talk about editing, this is a 2 hour 24 minutes long movie, and I did not expect that. I watched the movie almost in 3 parts because you just can't see the whole movie in one go. You can, but maybe when you watch it at night, an hour, then hour next day, and half an hour the third day. So I felt the movie was a little bit too long. It could have been edited well. Some of the scenes that I told you that were missing, such as someone who is thinking about his missing family, someone talking about what happens after these guys come to the hospital and they're all rescued, they're all fine, they're recovered. So some of those scenes could have been added to the movie to make it more impactful, but definitely 2 hours 24 minutes. I mean, 72 days in that location. Every day you can create so many different things. So of course you had to prioritize. I can see that happening, but I still feel that 2 hours 24 minutes could have been long. They do focus a lot on rugby and all that in the beginning. I felt at some point that was a little stretch. So that portion could be cut out. There's this locker room scene. There's a scene where they're trying to convince Numa to come. Yes, I guess that made sense, but it could have been made a shorter film in my opinion. The screenplay is terrific. I mean, there is one dialogue that will stick with all of you, and that is, there is no greater love than that which gives one's life for one's friend. I mean, that brought tears in my eyes. It actually is making my eyes moist right now as I'm speaking to you. I mean, that coming from a defense background, when I have seen patriotic movies where, a fellow soldier will die for his team is very inspiring. I mean, I almost feel choked talking about it. So it was definitely brilliant. And you see these young people that are very dramatic, they're very philosophical. I mean, a lot of these people were very young. For them to say these kind of dialogues, and that is commendable. I applaud that. Some of them were big worshippers of God, so they, maybe that influence was there. Maybe it was back in the 70s where you spent a lot of time with family, the culture, the values. It has been put into the screenplay. It's impactful. It is motivating. That's what I'm saying. The movie at every moment makes you feel that the words that are coming out, whether someone is dying, whether someone is alive, whether someone is trying to push the bar, it just can't be better than that. There is every respect to that moment. In that particular moment, what kind of dialogues or screenplay would you have? It justifies that. So, I never felt that any dialogue was loose. Sometimes you watch movies and there's a lot of fluff. There are dialogues that don't make sense, but this is a movie that's very tight. Yes, it's a 2 hour 24 minutes. It's a little bit longer movie for me, but every moment you see the dialogues, whether they were leaving the airport, the goodbyes, at the crash scene, when they reach the hospital, when they are survived, they are recovered. It's just amazing. So screenplay I thought was very remarkable, especially that one dialogue that I told you. Main protagonist. This is a dialogue that comes from Numa. And he has that written. Everyone is writing something or the other. Should they die, their family members should be aware of what they were thinking at the last minute. So when Numa dies, there is a scene where he dies in his sleep because of the infection spreads all over, and everyone circulates that piece of shit. And I thought that was really close to my heart to see someone. I'm almost joking. To write that at the age of his 20s is just superior and amazing. All right, so let's talk about my last section here. Like, why should you be watching this movie? And my conclusion, my rating. So definitely cry in you. This evokes a feeling of also pride in you that, how can someone be in that situation and, still come out? So it's inspiring, it's motivating. So you should definitely watch this movie. If you are a fan of local South American films, you're a fan of, documentaries, crash documentaries, this movie will really hook you. And also if you are a fan of modern cinema, how this old crash scene that happened and how can it be shown in a more modernistic way, you will really love this movie. And I mean, it was filmed in different countries, of course. You will forget your problem, when your own problems, your sufferings, when you watch this particular film. It's about the mindset too. Like, this will condition you to prepare better for the future. And ultimately, also in this movie, like, you cannot beat nature. And, it also shows you, like all these turbulences and all that, you have to get some cue from that. And ultimately, surviving in that harsh conditions is very, very tough. So, you have to be tough from within. So this is a story of survival. And I think J. Bayona, so he has made films like the 5th installment of Jurassic Park, The Impossible, Orphanage. So he has a great and unique storytelling way. So this is a family movie as well. There is no scene here that you would have to hide your kids in the closet. You can watch it with everyone. So I think overall this was an eye-opener for me. I was hesitant initially to watch this film, but I'm glad that I watched it. I was hesitant because I knew there was going to be a lot of pain, there was going to be disappointment, there was going to be cry, there was going to be death staring at you. But this is reality, and I think that the more you see these films, the more it can actually comfort you, that you will forget your problem, you will cherish life, you will understand that what you have is a lot better. You're in a lot more better condition than someone in the middle of nowhere. and being there for 72 days, who hasn't eaten and is just surviving on human flesh. So guys, that's pretty much all the review coming from me. I am gonna give this movie 9 out of 10, and I think that really touched me. I wish Snow of the Society all the very best, and I am quite hopeful that it is gonna win the best foreign film at the 96 Oscars. So that's all from my side. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any comments, please write them below. And if you like this movie, this review, please like or subscribe to my channel. I come up with reviews every now and then, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.